Uncover the shocking secrets of the Pentateuch books, Genesis to Deuteronomy revealed now. The sky above was a swirling gray, like a pot of stormy emotions ready to unleash chaos. People gathered in the dim, flickering light of the library, their murmurs like haunted whispers, cloaked in an air of uncertainty. They were drawn together by a single, astonishing claim, secrets hidden within the ancient text, waiting to explode into chaos. What could possibly lie within Genesis to Deuteronomy that could shatter their understanding of reality? It was as if the very fabric of time was unraveling, threatening to unveil things long buried. As the librarian cleared her throat, a hush fell over the crowd. Did you know that throughout history, whole civilizations have crumbled over interpretations of these texts? The way she said it sent shivers down spines. Eyes widened as if flames of curiosity were igniting. A hand shot up from the back, trembling with urgency. But what about the missing pages? An electric sensation swept through the crowd, charged with fear and intrigue. The rumor was that critical parts of these books had vanished, ripped out, burned, lost to the ages. What truths had slipped away? The air thickened with tension as an audible gasp rose when a dusty tome was cracked open. Pages turned slowly, revealing intricate drawings of battles fought and alliances made. The ink seemed alive, a swirling black that pulsed with energy. Voices intertwined in hushed tones. Could it be true? The stories of giants, of floods, of a world standing still. The library felt almost cinematic, alive with potential danger as the shadows crept closer. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The tension reached a fever pitch. A young man could barely keep his hands steady as he picked up a strange object, an ancient scroll found hidden behind the shelf. The librarian's eyes bulged, a mixture of fear and fascination splashed across her face. You don't understand. That could change everything. The atmosphere pulsed with an urgency that held everyone transfixed. What was on that scroll? Acquaintances exchanged uneasy glances, breaths quickened. It felt like the very air throbbed with waiting, but then it went deathly quiet. The librarian's phone vibrated violently, tearing through the silence, shattering focus. In that moment, panic struck like a thief in the night. What if it's a curse? Someone shouted, voice quavering. The librarian's fingers moved to the edges of the scroll, unsure should she dare reveal what was concealed. Could the knowledge bring salvation, or would it unleash unimaginable wrath? The unease lingered in the room like a thick fog of uncertainty. As she looked around, the students leaned forward, eyes gleaming with desire for understanding, yet tainted by an undercurrent of dread. Would unveiling these secrets grant them wisdom or doom them all? The question hung in the air, beckoning. What lay ahead in these sacred passages? Only one thing was certain: they were on the verge of discovering a truth that was never meant to be unearthed. The librarian hesitated, her fingers brushing the weathered edges of the scroll. The air in the library thickened, almost suffocating. Each breath taken felt like a gasp for air in the rising tide of tension. Curiosity was palpable, but an unseen danger cloaked the atmosphere like a pregnant storm cloud. Are you really going to open it? A voice piped up, trembling with anxiety. Another echoed, what if it's cursed? The murmurs escalated, brushing against her ears like heavy waves crashing against a shore. She glanced at the scroll again, her heart racing. Every instinct screamed to put it down, but something deeper urged her forward. With a deep breath, she steadied herself, heart pounding in her chest. This could hold answers to the missing pages, she whispered, though the words felt foreign on her tongue, loaded with implications. As she unfurled the scroll, the library dimmed further, strange shadows bathing the shelves in darkness as if the lights dared not shine on what was to be revealed. When the scroll finally opened, unbelievable symbols adorned the parchment, symbols that felt like they were glowing from within. The crowd leaned closer, drawn into the mesmerizing script that told of places forbidden and truths shrouded in blood and war. The very air around them crackled with energy. "Look!" someone gasped, pointing at an illustration that depicted a colossal figure, a giant in battle with people barely the size of ants, darting among his gigantic feet. Each detail was vivid: blood, lightning, the fierce intensity of struggle. Murmurs turned to shouts as realization sank in. These were not just stories. This was history, dark, terrifying history. What if it's true? Someone yelled, their voice tinged with panic. What if they're coming back? The implication hung heavy, a dark energy swirling around, echoing through the hearts of every onlooker. Fear gripped the room as the ancient tales seemed to breach the past and into their present reality. With a swift motion, the librarian covered the scroll. "We need to be cautious." Her voice trembled, a cracked facade trying to mask her own rising terror. These accounts could be more than myth. Uncertainty rippled through the crowd, brows knitted, heads shaking, doubts mounting like a tidal wave ready to crash. "Are you saying we might be in danger?" A woman near the front locked eyes with her, fear glimmering like shards of ice. The shadows around them seemed to pulse as if to respond, whispering promises of chaos. Just then, another loud vibration pierced through the haze of fear. A phone rang, escalating the already strained nerves. "What now?" Someone groaned, regretting the intrusion, eyes darting about, hungry for clarity amidst the chaos, but the librarian, her face pale, held up a finger. "It's not just a scroll. This is a key." "Key to what?" a brave soul asked, voice shaking. "To everything we feared and everything we thought was lost," she replied, resolve and vulnerability tangled in her gaze. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed from the back of the library. A startled gasp surged through the onlookers. Books rattled on their shelves, and the lights flickered ominously. All eyes raced toward the source of the disturbance. Someone was rushing towards them, a wild look in their eyes. As they burst into the circle, panting and frantic, they uttered a single chilling phrase: "You need to leave." "They're coming." What did that mean? Who was coming? An unsettling silence flooded the room, leaving only the beating of hearts loud enough to drown out the chaos. The air where fear and curiosity collided had reached its breaking point. Whispers of what lay ahead began to ripple through the room, a haunting promise that more was yet to be uncovered. What awaited them beyond that threshold? Only shadows knew, and they were inching closer. The librarian's breath hitched in her throat. The urgency of the warning thrummed in the air, electrifying the once peaceful library with dread. She glanced around at the wide-eyed crowd. Each person was rigid, frozen in terror and disbelief. "What do you mean? Who is coming?" she demanded, desperation creeping into her voice as she stepped closer to the newcomer. The man, disheveled and drenched in sweat, shook his head violently. "I can't explain it," he stammered, his eyes darting around as if the very shadows harbored some dreadful secret. "They're not from this world. They're ancient. And they're waking up." A storm of chatter erupted, panic rising like smoke. The librarian raised her hand sternly, trying to regain control. "We need to calm down. We can't just run blindly. We have to understand what is happening." Her voice sliced through the chaos, but it barely calmed the tide of fear. "Understand?" shrieked a woman in the corner, her face flushed with rising hysteria. "Did you not see those illustrations? If they're true, we could be standing on the brink of something catastrophic." The librarian turned back to the scroll she had almost forgotten. Its symbols glowed ominously under the flickering lights, drawing her in like a moth to a flame. There had to be answers within it that could help them. More than that, she felt an inexplicable bond to the ancient text, one that urged her to dig deeper. "We need to decipher this. It might tell us how to protect ourselves or even stop whatever is coming." With shaky hands, she unfurled the scroll once more, her focus narrowing onto the intricate designs. But before she could immerse herself in its mysteries, another sound ripped through the library, something heavy colliding with the wall, echoing like thunder. Gasps erupted, and everyone turned to see a shadow flitting at the edge of the light. Out! Get out now! The man shouted again, pushing through the frightened crowd. Panic ignited, and people surged back towards the exits, but the librarian stood rooted in place. She couldn't leave yet, not now. Wait! We can't just abandon everything. She insisted, desperation punctuating her voice. There's information here that information doesn't keep you safe. A voice barked back, shoving past her. The library door slammed open as people bolted outside, muffled screams echoing over the sound of panic. In that moment, a cold draft swept through the room, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and decay. The librarian felt an unnatural chill wrap around her spine. Was this the work of whatever had awakened? She barely registered the whispers rekindling in the shadows. Just beyond her line of sight, something rustled behind her, and she turned to look, heart pounding. The scroll seemed to pulse beneath her touch, almost alive, as if it were actively responding to the chaos surrounding them. It was then she noticed one of the symbols was shimmering brighter than the others, an invitation or a warning. Gripped by indecision, she exchanged glances with the other patrons. Some scrambled out, but others lingered, their expressions a mixture of fear and a twisted curiosity, drawn like bees to honey. Help us! A voice cried from the doorway, one of the brave souls who hadn't fled. What do we do, librarian? You're the only one who can tell us what they want. The librarian swallowed hard. This was more than just survival now. It was about uncovering a truth buried beneath centuries of myth and fear. And what lay ahead, she realized, was destined to shatter their understanding of history altogether. Then we'll unlock this, she announced, glancing back towards the scroll. But we have to be prepared. Whatever is coming, it won't shy away from spilling its bloodlust. A collective murmur of agreement swept through the group, determination igniting where fear once burned. Yet even as they leaned closer, something sinister stirred in the dark corners of the library, writhing closer as shadows lengthened. With each passing moment, a heavier weight settled over them like a blanket of foreboding. What had she unleashed? The question mocked her as she reached for the glowing rune, and then the lights went out. The darkness was absolute. It engulfed the room, swallowing the remnants of light like a beast with an insatiable appetite. The librarian's heart raced, her hands trembling against the scroll's rough edges. The silence pressed in on her thick and suffocating, its weight felt in the pit of her stomach. Is everyone okay? She shouted, but her words seemed to vanish into the void. All she heard was the shuffling of feet and the erratic breathing of terrified patrons, a chorus of uncertainty amplified in the dark. Librarian. The voice was close, laced with fear. What are we supposed to do now? Everyone. She called out, panic seeping into her tone. We need to stay together. Don't lose your way. But even as she said it, a sense of dread twisted in her gut. What chance did they have? Outside the walls of the library, whatever threat loomed was inching closer. She could almost feel it, an oppressive energy creeping through the very air they breathed. Suddenly, a flicker of blue light pierced the darkness, illuminating the scared faces around her. A man, one of the remaining few, clutched his phone high, its screen casting eerie shadows. We need to see what is happening. As the phone's glow spread, revealing the edges of the librarian noticed the symbols on the scroll beginning to pulsate. It was as if they were responding to the tension in the air, alive with a force of their own. She felt a pull, a magnetic urge that urged her closer. Look! Someone gasped, pointing towards a corner where a shadow seemed to undulate, growing larger and more defined. Stay still! She shouted, stepping between the terrified crowd and the shadow. It might be, but before she could finish, a guttural growl echoed through the library, rich with malice. The shadow undefined coalesced into a shape that was not human. It towered, the smell of decay wafting towards them like a funeral shroud. We need to get out. Someone screamed, eyes wide and wild, but the librarian shook her head. Escape wasn't an option, not yet. We can't just run. We're safer together, she insisted, determined to protect them. We need to uncover the truth in this scroll. Her pulse raced as she recalled the glowing rune, the one that had called to her before the lights died. She took a step back, her mind racing. I need to read it. We need to know what we're dealing with. Are you insane? Shouted a woman nearby, tears streaming down her cheeks. Look at it. You can't be serious. The librarian's resolve solidified. The ancient mystery within the scroll, the very essence of what could save them, had to be revealed. With urgency fueling her, she bravely reached out and clutched the scroll. The symbols flared, illuminating her face in an otherworldly light. Listen. Whatever happens, we need to unite our minds, she instructed, her voice firm despite the fear curling in her stomach. If we focus together, a dreadful shriek echoed, shaking the very foundations of the library. Books tumbled from shelves, crashing to the floor as the ground trembled. Panic erupted anew, amplifying the chaos around them. Now. She shouted over the tempest, focus. Think of the symbols. What do they mean? As the words left her mouth, the shadows shifted, swirling with ominous intent. They felt this before, they knew instinctively that their collective fear could summon something horrific. It was time to confront the truth of what had awakened, and then a horrifying clarity pierced the air. A startling realization echoed through her mind like a tolling bell. They were not just dealing with ancient beings. No, they were connected to them, woven into a tapestry of fate stretching back centuries. The glowing symbols radiated warmth, almost singing, as if they were alive, desperate to share a secret. As their light brightened, the librarian realized she had to dig deeper. What if we're a part of this story? She breathed, feeling the weight of urgency. What if? Before she could finish, another crash sounded, and an unspeakable force surged forth, halting her words. The shadows coalesced into forms, ancient and monstrous, eyes burning like molten coals. In that instant, the librarian understood that time was running out. Did they dare embrace the truth that could either save them or doom them all? A deep, resonating laugh echoed in the darkness, chilling them to the bone. With hearts pounding, they were left with one monumental choice, a choice that would rewrite everything they believed. Were they ready to face the ancient darkness that beckoned for their souls? The shadows writhed, following the movements of the roaring entity that now stood before them, an amalgamation of darkness that seemed to breathe in sync with their terror. The librarian's heart thundered in her chest, each beat a drumroll for the horror that was to come. Stay together. She shouted once more, her voice trembling, but something deep inside her felt stronger. The scroll pulsed against her skin, and visions of ancient symbols spun wildly through her mind, demanding to be deciphered. Librarian. The man with the light called out again, his fingers shaking as he gripped the phone. What if we can't stop it? We have to try. She yelled back, locking eyes with the others. We can't let it take us. We need to merge our thoughts, our energy. But what if that just makes it worse? Someone whispered, doubt lacing their voice, but the librarian shoved aside her own fear. There was no option for hesitation. As another scream erupted from the darkness, she felt a spark igniting among them. Strangers were not all that they were anymore, they were bound by a fear that fused them together. The radiance from her scroll flickered, echoing the tumult of their thoughts, and she sensed they were standing at the edge of an abyss, one that could either swallow them or reveal a path. Focus your thoughts. She commanded, holding the scroll firmly. What do we believe? Can we harness what binds us to face this evil? As she concentrated, the symbols began to resonate, merging into a coherent chant. It wasn't just her voice but a low hum building among the gathered souls. Ancient forces, listen to our call. Bind our fears, answer our thrall. The shadows writhed with anger, curling and slashing at the glowing light they conjured. Screams echoed as the monstrous form seemed to lash out, a feral hunger displayed in its grotesque features. Pain rippled through the crowd, but the librarian felt something was at courage. Each of you has a part in this chorus, she shouted, her voice steadier now, vibrating with the rhythm of their united thoughts. We are no longer strangers. We are all a thread in this tapestry. They are here for us. Just as the moment intensified, a blinding flash illuminated the library, flooding the shadows with brilliance. The monstrous figure recoiled, deep, echoing howls resonating in the chaos, snippets of twisted history swirling around, revealing its horrifying countenance. The smog of decay was almost palpable, filling their lungs with despair that a faint barrier shimmered between them and the creature, moving with each synchrony of their chanting. Could it hold? A collective gasp rippled through the patrons. Don't stop! She cried, desperation fueling her words. Don't break the chain. But then, the ancient voice of the creature seeped into their minds, a cacophony of the past. Fools, do you not know your own heritage? You are my kin, crafted from the same darkness that you fear. Fragments of history flooded her mind. Images of rituals, blood oaths, and a lineage twisted with allegiance to darkness began to unravel. The air thickened. The librarian stumbled. The truth was both terrifying and intoxicating. No! She yelled, locking her gaze with the entity's fiery eyes. We choose our path. We are not your puppets. The shadows recoiled as if struck, the ground beneath them groaning. But the entity was not finished. Beware what you awaken, child of light. Filtering through the past comes at a cost. A violent tremor ripped through the library. Books exploded from shelves like the sky was falling, and the barrier around them flickered as fear seeped back in. Were they truly connected to this ancient force? Darkness closed in, yet hope flickered like a candle in the tempest of despair. Focus! She screamed, feeling the weight of their plight against the overwhelming tide. And then, with one united push, the scroll blazed even brighter, engulfing them in an ethereal glow that outshone the shadows. For one fleeting moment, they felt untouchable, linked not only to each other but to a destiny yet unknown. Now! We press onward! The librarian demanded, her heart a crucible of determination. But as they propelled forward, she understood that unlocking these secrets bore consequences far greater than they anticipated. As she focused on the scroll, an ominous whisper slithered through the air, a warning that could not be ignored. Your next choice will seal your fate. And as the darkness writhed, pulsing with ancient fury, one chilling thought invaded her mind: what if the truth they uncovered was worse than the shadows themselves? The air crackled as the pulse of the scroll surged like a heartbeat, resonating through the chaotic room. Each person stood gripped by a mix of dread and determination, their minds ablaze with unease. The librarian focused, grappling with the pain weaving through her chest as the whispers of the entity seemed to wrap around her, tightening like a noose. Together! She yelled, wiping sweat from her brow. We can't let it break us apart. Her voice seemed to echo, reverberating in the minds of the frightened patrons. Shadows twisted, hungry shadows swarming inch by inch, emboldened by the fear seeping back into their hearts. Each flicker of the scroll felt like a pulse in her veins, urging them onward against the mounting terror. The creature's growl rippled through the air, a guttural sound that spoke of ages past, of ancient rituals long forgotten. You think you can defy your own blood? You cannot escape what you are. The librarian's throat tightened, the weight of history crashing down around her. Her fingers trembled on the scroll. We are not like you, she shouted. Our choices define us. Flashes of despair washed over her as shadows swirled around the edges of hope. The scroll flickered, radiating light and crackling energy that pushed back against the creature. But the intensity was fleeting against the embrace of darkness. Do you hear those whispers? A woman nearby murmured, face pale. They're not just words, they're calling us back. They want us to surrender. No. The librarian shot back, driven by an urgency she didn't fully understand. We will not bow to the past. Yet the shadows twisted capriciously, whispering secrets that seeped into her heart. Images of despair danced before her eyes, ancestors ripped apart by betrayal, bloodlines steeped in tragedy. The weight of their lineage threatened to pull her under, but she fought against it, pushing against the pane, her thoughts burning brighter. "Channel it!" she cried, catching the collective gaze of the group. "Feel the truth of your spirit. We are all connected through victory and suffering." Together, they chanted fervently, their voices intertwining with a fervor that surpassed mere survival. The inscriptions on the scroll glowed intensely, forming words, laughter, and sorrow of their ancestors echoing through time. As if awakening from a slumber, shadows began to writhe faster, caught between the haunting seduction of the past and the fierce flame of resolve seeping from them. "Your heritage is one of loss. Your ancestors fed me, child of light." The entity howled, and its visage shifted to grotesque forms, faces of their forebears twisted with agony, pleading silently. "Enough." The librarian's resolve was aflame. "We will not be defined by your darkness any longer." The combined force of their will surged, and the scroll blazed brighter than ever, an explosion of light that threatened to engulf everything. The shadows recoiled, like shadows in the sunlight, gasping for purchase, their screeches rising in violent protest, but as the barrier of light engulfed them, a flicker of doubt clouded her resolve. Behind the chaos, that serpent-like whisper slithered back into her mind, "You will see, child. Choosing to battle me will awaken something far worse." The walls of the library trembled, and with a ferocious snap, an unseen force exploded, sending books and debris flying. Blinding light met pitch darkness, and just when it seemed the tide was in their favor, the air shivered as reality twisted. Suddenly, from the very foundations of the library, a fissure opened, darkness spilling from it like tar, coiling and swirling, dragging with it the echoes of an unnameable horror. "Stop!" she screamed, her heart racing as she faced the collective dread that gripped her companions. "What have we unleashed?" As the darkness climbed, the librarian felt the icy fingers of dread on her spine. Their past screeched back to life, shaping into shadows taller than the creature they had just faced. They were not walking away from this somehow, they had opened a door they could not close again. "Survive!" she yelled as her voice began to falter against the roiling darkness. But in the pit of her stomach, a chilling realization struck: what they had revived would echo through time, binding them to a fate worse than death. "Now, face your heritage and what it demands." The cold whisper taunted one last time, and the librarian's heart dropped. All too late, they realized, in their quest for truth, they had awakened a darkness that had always been lurking, eager for release. The librarian steeled herself. "We must fight. We must find the source and end this, or we will lose everything." But as the shadows coiled tighter around them, one thought remained chilling and unshakable: what if fighting it only unleashed deeper horrors? The library felt like it was on fire. Everything blurred as shadows surged with a hungry darkness, clawing at them from every angle. The faces of her companions were pale, desperation etched in their eyes. It wasn't enough, nothing was enough. The librarian's heart thundered in rhythm with the pulse of the scroll, the only conduit to their escape. "Stand firm!" she barked, shaking her head to dispel doubt. "We can drive it back." But the shadows seemed to echo her fear, mocking her resolve, their hisses rising like smoke. The darkness grew denser, swirling around them, fueled by the dread of their ancestry, their failures whispering through the air. The scroll flickered, an erratic heartbeat caught between raging hope and despair. "Do you see them?" A young man pointed, voice trembling. "Our ancestors, they're screaming." The librarian looked closer. Faces appeared, twisted and sorrowful, emerging momentarily from the shadows, their features familiar yet unrecognizable, frozen in eternal torment. Each cry sent a chill through her, igniting the doubt that she had fought to suppress. What if they're right? She thought momentarily, gripped by the heart-wrenching images. What if we are bound to repeat their failures? No! She shouted, summoning her strength. Don't listen to them. They want us to yield. The room pulsed with energy, escalating as her conviction sharpened the collective focus. They began to chant again, voices rising, spiraling into an anthem of defiance. The scroll ignited in a burst of brilliant light. The shadows recoiled, shrieking like banshees in pain, yet, the darkness roared back. This is your legacy. You cannot escape your blood. The librarian felt a tug to answer the entity, her own insecurities wrapping around her heart like an iron grip. What if this battle will only awaken more nightmares? She questioned silently. What if can't you see? Your heritage haunts you. The creature's voice penetrated her thoughts, relentless, like a wave crashing into her defenses, then, abruptly, a surge of warmth enveloped her, the energy from the scroll blending with her determination. We have a choice. She cried. The past does not dictate our future. But even as she spoke, the shadows twisted violently, their form shifting. From the depths of the fissure, a figure emerged, a monstrous silhouette, ancient and towering, its eyes like burning coals. A primal fear settled into the pit of her stomach. No. She gasped, stepping back, but her feet felt as if they were glued to the ground. The entity before them was unlike anything they had ever faced, not a remnant of their past but a pure embodiment of their fears. The air trembled with its presence, whispers shot through their minds, igniting memories woven in pain and bitterness. Flee, it hissed, a sound like shards of glass clattering to the floor. Or perish in the truth of your own making. No. The librarian cried out defiantly, filling her lungs with courage. They had fought against shadows, but this was something else entirely, a fear so deep it threatened to swallow them whole. We find strength in unity. We didn't just come here to relive our history. Her voice rang in the charged air, igniting a spark of hope. A handful of the group rallied around her, bolstered by her resolve, but dread held many of their hearts captive. Together? The woman murmured, uncertainty creeping back into her gaze. Can we really do it? The librarian met her gaze, her chest tight with an urgency she couldn't shake. We have to. And in that decisive moment, they formed a line, palms pressed against each other. They threatened, in that breath of unity, to ignite the remnants of their past, channeling their pain into a blinding force, but as they channeled their spirit, the shadows surged. The creature's laughter echoed through the library, a sound twisted and sharp. Foolish children. Do you think this will end well for you? The screams of the past escalated, a chorus of despair and resentment. The librarian felt her heart race as the shadows roared, eager to consume them. Was there truly strength in unity? Or would their bond only draw forth deeper horrors hidden within their ancestry? A new resolution gripped her. They were at the precipice of remembrance, a line drawn between salvation and obliteration. All they could do was push forward and uncover the truth, whatever that truth may be. And just as they moved to confront the darkness, she couldn't help but wonder, what darker secrets had they unsettled in their desperate grasp for understanding? The cavernous library trembled, dust swirling like miniature galaxies lost in cosmic confusion. The deafening cacophony of screams reverberated in their ears, wrapping around them like chains. The towering figure loomed, shadows coiling around those who dared to defy it. Each pulse from the scroll flooded the air with energy that both sustained and terrified them. Focus! The librarian shouted, her voice cutting through the frenzy. We're stronger than this. But as she screamed, doubt seeped in. Their ancestors' faces twisted with sorrow, a mirror of their fears and failures. The shadow's laughter rattled her bones, chilling her resolve to the core. Can we break this cycle? She thought, urgently grasping for optimism. What if they were right? What if? Her heart ached, the memory of countless voices echoing in the library, grandparents, parents, all the whispers of lineage binding them to this moment. Together. She rallied, determination brightening her voice. We stand as one. We rewrite our legacy here and now. The others echoed her words, hesitating yet inspired. Each face shone with flickering hope. Would unity be their salvation or their doom? A ripple of courage surged through their hands, as their palms pressed together, a chain of defiance forged against the ancient beast, but then the entity roared. You dare challenge me? It lunged forward, shadows unfurling like ravenous tendrils. The air thickened with despair, suffocating their resolve. Your unity only binds you deeper into your family's failures. With a sudden lurch, the creature bore down on them, its fiery eyes glowing against the dark. The heat radiated, a stark reminder of their own mortality. Heartbeats pounded in sync, a frantic rhythm begging them to surrender. No. We will remember our ancestors, not as shackles, but as guides. The librarian's voice broke through, laced with fierce passion. They made choices that shaped us. We can do better. We can choose hope. The scroll sparked with light, vibrant and resolute. Flickering images burst forth, revealing glimpses of those lost in battle, brave souls who fought their own shadows. The group gasped as they saw brave faces, some familiar, others mere whispers of the past rising against darkness. Look! A woman shouted, pointing at the scroll. They're showing us their strength, the legacy isn't just pain. Hope surged, filling the cracks of fear within. Their chant intensified, rising like a storm against the creature. They felt it, a collective heartbeat pounding, resonating with the power of their lineage, transforming despair into fierce resilience, but just as they seemed to gain ground, the towering shadow twisted in rage. Fools! You have no idea what you're awakening. It bellowed, deep tremors coursing through the floor beneath them. Suddenly, the library shook violently, shelves rattling, books falling like autumn leaves from trees. One by one, their sanity threatened to unravel. The librarian stumbled, but steadied herself, clutching the scroll like a lifeline. Stay together. She implored, lungs burning as the air thickened. Don't let it tear us apart. The group tightened their grasp, hearts beating as a singular entity. They chanted louder, drowning the whispers and screams, their voices merging in defiance. Then, an overwhelming force crashed against them. The shadows lashed out, tearing at their unity, tugging at their doubts, wrapping around their hearts. The librarian's chest tightened, the weight of darkness suffocating her spirit. Yet, somewhere deep within her, a flicker of resolve remained, the thought that not every story ends in despair. Remember who you are. We are not just shadows, we are the light that breaks through. She yelled, desperation blending with conviction, and as they poured their souls into their chant, she sensed the change. The creature staggered, faltering for the first time, its raging laughter faltering. What more could it possess? A voice echoed, trembling but strong. What are we awakening, truly? Darkness rippled, revealing an ancient truth, an underlying horror weaving through. Their lineage all tied to one cursed secret. The library shivered, a living entity, guarding that which could unravel their very existence. The librarian felt the weight of the moment shattering like glass. They needed to confront whatever lay behind this enemy, or risk losing themselves forever. What dark secret lurks in the shadows of our ancestry? She whispered, dread clinging to her, and with that uncertain question in the air, a violent whirlwind engulfed them, the scroll flickering erratically, threatening to slip from their grasp. The whirlwind howled, twisting around them like a serpent intent on suffocating its prey. The librarian clutched the scroll, her knuckles white against the chaos. Around her, the others struggled to maintain their grip, each face reflecting a raw mixture of fear and determination. Time seemed to stretch, defying the very flow of reality. Don't let go. She screamed, her voice barely making it through the tempest. With a grounding breath, she fought against the urge to succumb to panic. We're not done yet. As if drawn by the strength of her words, the scroll flared to life. It shimmered, letting out beams of light that cut through the shadows like knife blades. Images flooded the air, visions of their forebears battling darkest fears. There they were, fighting through storms of doubt and despair, but always moving forward. Their resolve lit the way like stars breaking through a dense fog. See. A man gasped, eyes wide with realization. They didn't back down. They carried the burden, but they pushed on. The librarian nodded, her heart swelling at the sight of their ancestors embracing courage. If the past could shine through their darkness, then surely they could do the same. But then, an ear-splitting roar issued from the depths of shadow, shaking the very foundation of the library. You think you can escape me? You awaken nothing but your own ruin. The creature writhed, its tendrils snapping and lunging at their feet. Just then, one of the group stumbled. A woman, her face draining of color, whispered, "What if it's true? What if we're just repeating their mistakes?" "No." The librarian shot back, her voice fierce as a lash against the darkness. "We can learn from them. Their struggles don't define us." With that, she urged the others to channel the energy radiating from the scroll, focusing on the flickers of hope rather than despair. They had lived whole lives shaped by those who came before them, their courage coursing through their veins. It was time to celebrate that legacy, not fear it. The shadows, however, shifted with menacing glee. "You are too naive," it taunted. "Every act of defiance only ties the noose tighter." Suddenly, the scroll pulsed violently, images transitioning faster, revealing not just victories, but failures, too, the dark sides of their lineage, the betrayals etched in blood. The weight of those failures crashed upon them like tidal waves, threatening to drown their desperation. "Stop!" the librarian shouted, clutching the scroll tighter. "Remember who we are. We are more than our failures." With every ounce of will she could muster, she basked in the strength of those spirits determined to rise against fate. Hearts synchronized, her voice a beacon amidst the roaring despair, "Rise. In our unity lies our strength. We must embrace the trials of our past, but we will not be bound by them." As if interwoven with her words, the scroll erupted into a radiant light, repelling the shadowy creature. But the relief was short-lived. The shadows thrashed, their fury igniting the air with every crack and flash. Then, out of the chaos, a distinct voice emerged from the shadows, smooth and chilling. "Ah, but you are so close to the truth, aren't you? However, are you prepared for what awaits you? The more you learn, the more you may wish you hadn't." The librarian felt a chill slither down her spine as the shadows paused, hovering on the precipice of revelation. "What do you mean?" she demanded, though dread clung to her side. "For every secret that brings you light, there's one that could shatter your very soul." The voice dripped with malice, the creature's eyes glinting with dark satisfaction. "You may not be ready to unearth what truly lies in your lineage." The librarian's heart raced. What was lurking there? What devastating truth awaited them in the depths of history? As the shadow's whirlpool began to spin faster, she could feel the pull of darkness, threatening to drag them into the abyss. Would they unravel the truth that could free them, or would it crush them under its weight? What else could it be hiding? She whispered. Feeling the edges of hope fraying, the world cracked beneath their feet as the scroll lit up, an ominous glow illuminating the darkness and revealing the path ahead, its weight heavy with uncertainty. And in that pivotal moment, she knew, they were about to confront the binding curse the shadows had long protected. But would the truth liberate them or destroy them? The shadows lunged toward them, a dark tide threatening to engulf everything in its path. The librarian felt a chill in the air as she held onto the scroll like a lifeline, its energy flickering against the onslaught of darkness. She locked eyes with her companions, and for a brief moment, a spark of defiance flickered in each of them. They were bound together, woven by ancestral threads of fear and courage. "Focus!" she cried out, her voice ringing against the chaos. "We can't let them break us." The creature roared, its voice echoing off the walls, drowning her out. "Fools! You think you can overcome me? You are merely shadows of your ancestors." "No!" she shouted, unwilling to yield. "We are not just echoes. We are their legacy, the light in their darkness." As if her words had magical power, the scroll pulsed brighter, illuminating their surroundings. Ancient symbols flared, casting edges of radiant light against the encroaching shadows. The air hummed with urgency, and the librarian felt every heartbeat sync with the collective energy of those around her. "Together," she urged. "Remember what they fought for. We fight for our own freedom." Voices joined in, an echoing chorus of determination. The scroll responded, swirling with light, illuminating images of ancestors faced with darkness but ultimately choosing courage. Each face, each story built on the same fundamental truth: they could choose their fate. Suddenly, the shadows recoiled as the librarian felt the air vibrate with the potency of their unity. "You think you can defy your fate?" the creature bellowed, its fury building. "Yes." they yelled in a collective roar, their voices ringing out. "We choose." The scroll burst forth a wave of brilliant light. The cold darkness faltered, twisting as if stricken. Screams of rage filled the air, but they pressed on, arms linked, hearts beating fiercely as one. "Look!" a man cried, pointing to the shadows which now wavered and flickered like a flame threatened by a gust of wind. "This is our chance." The librarian trembled but held her ground. "Channel everything we are. Our struggles, our victories, let them guide us." The scroll erupted with brightness. "We are not bound to your darkness," she shouted defiantly. "We are our choices, our voices, our strength." With each word, the shadows shrank back, twisting and contorting in agony. The librarian felt the pull of the past, a cage of ancestral burdens, but she beat it back with the realization that they held the power to break free. And then, from nowhere, a shriek of collective recognition arose among them. They were not merely fighting to silence the darkness. They were claiming their identity, their freedom. The scroll's symbols ignited once more, spinning away the tendrils of shadow. They were part of this tapestry of time, but it was their choice to weave it anew. "Push!" she shouted, throwing her spirit into the light. In that critical moment, an explosion of sound erupted, a shattering clarity piercing through the dark. The massive entity before them faltered, and in that instant of vulnerability, a fissure opened within the creature, a swirling maelstrom of its very essence unraveling. "No!" it howled, a mix of anger and fear, unraveling like smoke in the wind as it dispersed into the ether. The darkness around them began to dissolve, fading like a bad dream, illuminating the library that now glowed with their victory. As the light faded, the librarian fell to her knees, gasping for air. Around her, the remaining people stared in wide-eyed astonishment, the weight of comprehension dawning. They were no longer victims of the past but architects of their destiny. "We did it," someone whispered, awe-stricken. Feeling the warm weight of the scroll still in her hand, the librarian exhaled deeply. "We unlocked the truth and we prevailed," she said, her voice trembling yet filled with newfound strength. "The stories, they're not just ours but history itself. We've learned from both the suffering and the strength." The crowd closed around her, their faces brightening with hope, their eyes glistening with tears of disbelief and relief. They had faced the shadows that tied them to their past and emerged victorious, stronger together. With one last reluctant glance at the now quiescent shadows, she knew their work was not done. They had to share this truth, guide those lost within their own battles. "But we must remember," she added softly, "to teach our stories light and dark so we don't lose our way again." And as they stepped into the light of a brand new day, the librarian felt hope burgeon in her chest. They were the torchbearers of history, united in the desire to write a new legacy. So, as the last remnants of night faded from the library, an air of calm settled. Life didn't just resume, it thrived. This was the moment they had fought for. Now, remember, this is about teamwork, resilience, and truth. Are you ready to continue the journey with us? You need to subscribe now to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. The world needs to hear this. Flood the comments section below with your reactions and theories about this ending. We want to hear from you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support matters.